Over the Hump, recorded live on Sunday, October 11th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have joining us. It's been a while, but he's back. Propane. Welcome back,
Hello,
sir.
everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hope everyone's having a great time.
We also have Turbine's community manager, Cordovan.
Hello, glad to be here. Nice to be on with you, Propane. I'm not sure that I've been on the show with you before. Maybe once.
Maybe once, yeah, I was thinking
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
You could look it up, but yeah, Propane's been out for a little while. It's good to have him
The
back.
summers are rough. The darn work get in the way of fun stuff.
Oh, and I heard you were having some fun in the sun as well,
Yes.
so it's a good time for that.
Yeah, we got the Harleys out for enjoying one of the last days of beautiful weather here this fall.
Indeed. This week's screenshot, Outrage. Ondrej fights the inevitable in the 242nd screenshot of the week. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, our website, DDOCast.com, or you can... there's a couple other places you can probably find us, but that's generally the big places. DDOcast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be on next Saturday, October 17th. You can stay updated by following us on social media pages or our website, DDOcast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, we've got a first look at Arcane Archer, some changes to tomes, and our main topic is going to be Explorer areas. Which I thought would be a fun. Didn't think we'd done it in a while, and it was. Oh yeah, just fair warning. I might cough sometimes during this. I've been sick most of the week, and getting over that. It was kind of a rough week for that, so I was kind of behind the eight ball on getting this show out and produced. I think I talked to you guys on Friday, but it's kind of one of those weeks. So Explorers, that'd be fun. We haven't really talked about those, and it's a nice topic and be informative, and pretty sure I hadn't done it anyways, so and I didn't really feel like we need a lot of prep time, but in any case, to start with, Wizenman from the chat would like Jerry to tell us more about gnomes.
Oh, what about gnomes?
I don't know, he just says you can tell us more about gnomes.
Oh, well,
I mean, they're short, they like
yeah,
pointy
they're
hats.
short. Yeah,
I
The
think they
great
have pointed
nice
ears.
lawn ornaments.
Yeah.
yeah. We have been working on gnome. I think that's been known for quite some time now. Sev wasn't a month ago made a forum post where he was like, I can neither confirm nor deny that we're working on gnomes, and then I've sort of been hinting on the Twitch streams and that we've been working on gnomes. So yes, we are working on gnomes. Too early though to say like when it's going to be out, all that sort of thing. Because the thing about, I mean, the short flippant answer is it's going to be out when it's ready. When's it going to be ready? When you develop a race, it's kind of hard to know until you get closer to the end, because
Especially when you're developing
Yeah.
3 epic raids, and yeah.
I'm going
Some of the
to
green
I'm going to
steel
say
coming
yeah, Epic Green Seal is actually set for update 29 at the end of the year with Epic Shroud. My guess, actually this isn't a guess, Gnome is not going to be in 2015, but whether or not it's a update 30, I don't want to commit yet, but something like that maybe,
Coming
if we can get it out.
But it's
sooner than
officially
later.
on the radar.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Now with that side topic into the foray, we'll get into our main topic of discussion. We're going to talk about Explorer areas. I want to start by, what are Explorer areas? What can you do in them? Feel free to jump in, so I'm not talking.
Well, Explorer areas differ from, in some ways they're similar to dungeons in that, for the most part, they are 6-person, with a couple of exceptions. And the key difference is that they tend to be persistent in terms of the kills that you have. So, for example, you'll go through a dungeon, you'll complete the dungeon, you'll get your XP. Whereas wilderness areas, you'll get XP for finding various locations, for killing named bosses, rares, complete special rare objectives in some cases, and also just for killing stuff. So the idea of the wilderness area when it first came out in its current incarnation was to give you something to do when you just had, say, 10, 15 minutes to play. Hey, I got 15 minutes before I have to head back to work, and I'm at I'm at lunch, and so I can go in there and rack up some Slayers in the Veil of Twilight, and then eventually you're going to get hit these certain milestones and get XP and things like that for them. They tend to be larger than dungeons, although there's some that probably don't fit that mold, and some dungeons that are basically the size of wilderness areas. And in a lot of cases, there are places where the dungeons reside. Again, I'm looking at you like, say, Veil of Twilight, and sometimes there are raids in there, like in House Caneth or the ruins of Thunderholm. Things like that, but they sort of are a little bit more traditional MMO-y in that they're wide open areas that you can run around in as a group and kill things. But they tend to not be fetch questy like you would see in some other MMOs.
One thing I like to add is a lot of the explorer areas are much more forgiving in level ranges. You can take characters of 4, 5, 6, 7 different levels within there, and you don't have to worry about the XP penalty. As long as you're within the range, everyone will get full credit of the kills.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great way if you have say a guild run or a party where you do fall on those wider level ranges, wilderness areas are a great place to go into.
I'm trying to think. I can only think of one explorer area that doesn't have a quest in it. And that would be Searing Heights.
That's true.
No, there's one in Syrian Heights. Isn't Storm? There's the one from the Sentinel chain.
Oh, right. They added that later, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there isn't one.
Yeah, I guess maybe you're right.
Well, they're basically just kind of... They're almost more flavor intended to kind of give you the idea of traveling to the quest through a wilderness area, kind of give the random encounter-y kind of feel to them. There's kind of 3 objectives, right? So you can kill stuff, the Slayers, and sometimes there's multiple versions of Slayer, so you can kill a couple different things. Giant Hold being a classic example of having 3 different Slayers. Then there's Explorers, which in the older versions particularly, but in some of the newer ones too, you have to run to a specific point, which are not generally, like, kind of once you get the idea down of where they are, they kind of start to stand out a little bit to you. Like, oh, there's a really high point bluff. I bet you that's an explorer area. Or
hey, look, a log.
Points.
We can walk through that log. We should walk through that log.
Yeah, there's some stuff like that makes it pretty obvious.
If you're like, hey, what's that thing? There's a good chance you want to see it.
Yeah. And then kind of in the newer versions, there's little icons that you have to actually go up and click on. And in those cases, actually, they're generally giving you more of a story. If you've been in Temple of Elemental Evil, the commentary, kind of with the commentary of I can't even remember his name for all of a sudden. The DM's commentary.
Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton. There we go. Thank you. I guess it's been that kind of a week. His commentary, now that commentary is very metagame. This commentary is still within the realm of the game, but it's not really about the space that you're actually at, as opposed to the ones where you actually walk up to an actual area. The DM text that comes along with that is relevant to that spot itself. And then there's rare monsters, random encounters, which come in some variety, particularly in the newer versions, but in a lot of cases it's just a rare monster. Although there is one particular one that comes to mind in the Epic Orchard of Macabre, which is this like weird random electric puzzle to resurrect a golem, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, there are a few that are kind of like that are a little more puzzly or dialogue driven. There's the one in the Stormhorns where you kind of get into the dance contest. So there is some variety to it, right? But in general, it's rares. And besides giving you something to hunt and get XP for, that's also where you're going to find the chests for the most part in the wilderness areas.
There's a few chests that are just kind of static there. If you look at kind of more older explorer areas, those rares tend to have specific points that they're going to spawn. Some may have 1 or 2 spots where they might actually spawn. In the newer zones, they can kind of be more random and more just kind of almost anywhere. Although there's still a few, like the Stormhorns is very much a random area. The names can happen in very many different places. but at least there's like 2 dragon spawns that they only happen in those specific spots.
Specifically, I believe that tech came with Menace of the Underdark. So anything after Menace of the Underdark.
Right. Yeah. So we want to talk about. So that's kind of what you can do with them. We want to probably spend most of our time talking about how can you utilize them in your gaming experience, rather than just run through them blithely and maybe kill a few random things on your way. How do you guys use them in your gaming experience to kind of augment your DDO play?
I personally use them for 2 things as my most go-to. When I'm almost at a level and not there, I'll go into especially a new explorer zone, and you get XP for those first kill marks, like 25, 50, 100. You can get them pretty quick. So if I'm ever just about to level and want to just grab some quick XP and not bother trying to pick out a quest or find someone, an explorer comes to the top of my mind to go to. And then again, if I have a wider level of guildies I want to run with, for example, Orchard Macabre's a nice level range. I think it's 13 to 19 or something, where you can get a pretty
19.
10 to 19, yeah. So you can get a nice range of people, and you don't have to worry about XP, power leveling, or any of that.
Yeah, on that level range thing, some even go into epics. Like, for example, the ones in the Reaver's Refuge are 13 to 22. Veil of Twilight is 12 to 21.
Orchard of Macabre is actually the highest level one that does not make it to an epic level.
Yeah. So even if you have a mixed heroic epic party, there are some places where you can go high road, where you can actually quest together without suffering penalties.
I think like Amarath's another one. There's a few of those quests and areas that are in that in-between range when you can run a 18 and 21 or 22 and still get XP fairly easily around for everybody.
Yeah, I like to use them for. I think what Propane said most applies to me is kind of that like in-between XP is kind of my most common use of. I'm almost to cap. Go ahead and a couple explorers. And even, like, particularly when you go up into epic levels, I mean, suddenly it's like, oh, I need another 50k to cap. I'll just go run around the Demon Web for 20 minutes and get it. It's also kind of like maybe, I don't know, a lot of times when I get to that point where I'm, like, almost there, just having something fast and kind of low stress, easy, because you're not dealing with normal hard elite, right? You don't have to pick that difficulty level. They're just one difficulty level. And in a lot of cases, if you go in by yourself, you can have fewer mobs. You know, if you're just going to go run in and get the explorer areas, and I usually use the explorer areas to get that over the hump kind of XP. And then some of the Slayer kind of comes with that just naturally. But generally, I'll go to places where I know where a bunch of explorers are and I can run around. Oddly enough, the Demon Web is really good for that, even though it's really hard to navigate, because every island has one. So
oh yeah, the Demon Web's
doesn't really matter which direction you go. You just wander around and you get a bunch.
We could talk in more detail about this later, but there is really good XP to be had in wilderness areas.
We'll get there.
I would say that the way I tend to play it is one of 2 ways. Oftentimes, if I'm pugging or I'm with a guild and we know that so-and-so is going to log in, but it's probably going to be somewhere 15 minutes to a half hour. Rather than get in the middle of a quest or something like that, we could just kill stuff, get XP, find explorers, loot chests, just kind of kill time while still making progress. So I'll do that. Also for pickup groups, frankly. If I'm in a pickup group and we're waiting for the other 4 slots to fill, which is less of an issue nowadays than it used to be.
Yeah.
People tend to just kind of run with what we got. But back in the day particularly, I used to use wilderness areas a lot to do something while I'm waiting around.
It's great for the itchy trigger finger people.
Yeah. With the subterranean, you can take raid groups in there, especially if you're trying to run something that doesn't fill as quick. You can do 2 or 3 Gargamel runs while you're trying to fill.
If you know the way.
The other thing I'll do is, if I don't know how much time I have, like let's say I might have 15 minutes, but I might have 45. I don't want to jump into a quest that I know is going to take a half hour because I might have to ditch before I'm done, and then I'm kind of, quote, wasting the opportunity to get XP. Whereas at least if I go in a wilderness area, I'll be getting, hits of XP periodically. So if I need to bail out, I can do that pretty easily.
Yeah, the limited time thing is a great one. I used to do that a little bit more. Now, when I have limited time, I'm generally doing inventory management or something like that, or maybe I'll just grab a book and read it or something to that effect. I tend to, I don't know why, but like these days, I tend to use larger chunks of time, and if I know I'm down to just a couple of, I only have 15 to 45 minutes, I'll generally go do something else. Um, or I'm doing inventory management and trying to catch up on that, which is kind of a never-ending battle when you have 15 characters.
What did we
Frankly,
do before shared banks? I don't understand how we got along.
Right, lots of alts. That's how we did it. Frankly, I incorporate wilderness areas into my leveling as well. There are certain level ranges where I know I'm heading into the desert. I'm heading into Giant Hold. As you said, the Demon Web. Holy moly, the Demon Web! You know, and you can get some great XP. So I actually incorporate it into my leveling plan. Very much so.
With the exception of some of the higher level ones, I tend, unless I'm kind of trying to get that over the hump XP, I'm generally not going specifically to an explorer area for XP. But since I'm running through them, I'll generally, get some. I'm generally not going to use a Slayer pot unless I'm intending to stay in that Slayer area or a couple of them and really go through it. But there's definitely like the Vale, Shindelrin, Orchard of Macabre. A lot of those ones where I'm running to the quests, and I'll take little detours and hit this explorer and that explorer. High Road, I do that a lot in as well. It's not a lot of XP necessarily. The explorers don't tend to be a lot of XP. They're a kind of low-hanging fruit, but
it adds up.
Oh yeah,
I mean, especially a lot of times in my heroic questing, particularly in the latter half of 10 to 20, I will get a lot of XP from some of the wilderness areas. You can in the amount of time, you spend a half hour questing and a half hour in the wilderness areas, especially if you're fresh and have a Slayer pot running, in many cases, you'll get more from the wilderness area than you would from questing.
It's not uncommon for me to get 30 to 60,000, if not more, just running from one quest to the other quest in some of these areas. Just because I kill the stuff that's on the way and whatnot. I think to kind of move our conversation forward, what I want to talk about is what goals do we tend to pursue when we're in explorer areas? All right. So like, do you just kind of get what you get on the way from quest to quest to quest, or are you going in to find specific, like get all the explorer areas? You kind of tend to focus on slayers, rares. What do you guys kind of like to do for explorer area play?
I try to get all the explorer points on the map to get the bonus XP for that and kill what I can along the way. And after I get all the explorer points, I'll look at my kill count and see how close I am to the next XP payout. And then I'll probably go and, if I'm closer, relatively close, I'll go and get that XP payout.
So does that apply just if you're actually actively doing that explorer area, or do you kind of make it a point to go to different explorer areas and get all of those explorers?
Yeah, I make it a point, the Sands, Orchard, and Giant Hold specifically, especially during the heroic lives, to go through and do a loop, making sure I get all the explorer points and get the kills along the way.
We should note too that if you do get all the explorer points, there's a bonus XP for achieving that, but it also clears the fog of war. In your explorer.
So, in other words, you can see the entire map every time you go in there. Just for those who don't know what the fog of war is,
right?
But you still have
to you have to get all the explorers though in order to do that, or have it be the last one you visited. But basically, the way to permanently do it is to find all the explorers.
You do have the hazy stuff, but you can see everything. Well, the haze is nice though because it tells you where you've been in that circuit before you reset it. So
yeah. I will find all the explorers, particularly if I'm not going to be doing a lot of TRing on that character. Last Life, for example, I will absolutely make sure I hit all the explorers of probably at least Giant Hold in the desert, Vale of Twilight, just because it makes things so much easier to get your way around there. But yeah.
You
Otherwise, I'm
mentioned
kind of in the same way to you, Propane. I'll run out to the quest like Veil of Twilight. I'll run and I'll kill things along the way. Hopefully, pick up as many of the explorers as I can, and then once I get out of the quest, I'll see how close I am to the next uh, threshold of Slayers, and then I'll do that. So what I'll do is I'll tend to go to all the quests in the area and pick up explorers, and then after I've done all the quests in the area, I'll see, well, how many explorers do I have left? How many slayers do I have left? That kind of thing. And then if presumably if I either want to get the explorers or if I'm fairly close, I'll spend the extra half hour or so to finish out that wilderness area and get all the rest of the explorers in that.
And what you guys are doing when you're doing the kind of more questing, do you generally drink a Slayer pot while you're doing that, or you kind of save those for more actively explorer questing?
It's not fair. I have free turbine points. So yes, I have Slayer pots running.
That's fair.
Yeah, from the daily dice roll, at least myself, I got a fair number of pots. Or may not all be the big one, but I try to use the pot and specifically do a rare or explorer mission to make sure I get all of them, so I get the most benefit out of the pot.
I tend not to use my Slayer pots when I'm doing that. I have I have a plenty from daily dice and from a few boxes here and there. I don't know. I'm terrible with consumables. Someone actually asked us to do a show on consumables. I'm terrible with consumables. I will go and buy a stack of 100 level 5 guild haste pots, and then from level 1 to 28, I'll use like 5 of them. Like I just don't. I'll use XP pots, but I tend to like as few as possible as I can use. Generally, what I do is
no. Go ahead.
Generally, what I do is when I'm doing questing, I'll detour and get different explorer points, and I'll kill stuff. But I'm generally not too worried about collecting. I very rarely actually actively go and find all of the explorer points. I think the only 2 areas that I really sort of even try and do, well, maybe 3, would be Shindelrin, the Vale, and the Orchard, with Heroic Orchard, not the Epic Orchard. I've just never really made it a point to find all the necessary explorer areas and a lot of attempts or anything like that. The Fog of War doesn't bother me in the explorer areas because I have a really good head for maps, so I don't need to see everything. But that's kind of how I've generally done it. If I go into an explorer area to really, I'm really actively going to that explorer area for XP, I'm generally doing Slayers more so, and then explorers and rares I pick up on the way, but really it's the Slayers that I'm going in for.
A quick note on Slayer pots, and I suppose maybe this is a separate topic, but they do pause in public areas, so they only go down when you're in the wilderness area. And they are pretty plentiful nowadays. There was a time where they tended to be more DDO store things, but nowadays between daily dice, they were in the anniversary card event. We've done free coupons for them quite a few weeks this year. You can get them for free pretty easy. In addition, you can get a minor one from the Vaults of the Artificers, the House C challenge traders, and that's a good way to use up your extra ingredients as well. But if you're playing daily dice, for free and everything, you'll be picking up some Slayer count boosts most likely, and use them because it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it really does.
It'll, in some cases, 1 kill will count toward 2. So it's
the big one. It's 1 kill is 3.
Yeah, 1 kill is 3, right? Because it's by 200%.
Yeah, so it can really, really shoot you up fast, and that kind of idea.
You mentioned the Epic Explorers. I know when you do your first Epic Life, when you hit those Explorer points, if you start doing your Epic TR or your Iconic TR, those Explorers don't reset. You got kind of one and done on them. Do you know if there's any possibility of getting a reset on that somewhere along the way?
actual true reincarnation will reset them. But
True, but if you're doing your epic lives, you're going from 28 to 20, 28 to 20. You get your one pass through there, and then that avenue of XP stream is done. So it'd be nice, that'd be something to consider, either thrown in the store or a favor reward or something.
Yeah, that's an interesting
favorite
idea.
reward? That'd be interesting.
Well, it's I believe I remember having some conversations about that when we were doing Epic Explorer areas, because some people like that they reset every life, and some people are like, I'm not going to bother with them until I'm on my final life. So there was a design decision to make it that they don't reset, but then that is inconsistent, right? Because the heroics do. So I think giving that choice would make sense.
Do the heroics reset when you lesser reincarnate or epic reincarnate?
The true reincarnate, right? They do.
All of them reset when you true reincarnate. So.
Oh, okay.
There's no difference.
Yeah, when you do it true, when you go to 20 down to 0 or 1, they reset. But when you do that loop from 20 to 28, you don't get a chance to get that XP a second or third, fourth time.
Which I mean, honestly, there's so much XP in some of those that it's probably for the best.
Well, that may be why as well that they upped the XP because you couldn't redo them.
My personal sense is there's not a dearth of XP in epic levels.
Yeah.
Especially since the way that things have changed and you can run through. I mean, Spies in the House, Vaughn 3, Wiz King. Maybe throw in a few more of your favorite things. People want those, and you can cruise up pretty quick. So,
but back to the earlier conversations of your time commitments and doing something different. Because how many times have we ran Bond 3 now? Please, I'd rather go around the Explorer area for a while.
It's a fair point.
Yeah.
It's certainly a fair point. Let's see. I actually was going to say too. Jerry, and you can take this to the dev team. Perhaps I know a lot of people are kind of looking for something more out of the 1750 favor reward. Maybe a Slayer potion would be a good alternative to +2 tomes. Just throwing that out there. In any case, what I want to talk about next is let's talk about maximizing our efficiency. What are some things that you guys do to really maximize the XP that you're getting out of these Explorer zones?
Find people. If you're going after kills, try to get a group of 6 people because your spawn rates, and you can even split up depending on what zone, what you're doing.
Yeah, having a full group in there, or even a raid group, say in the case of the subterranean or whatever, can be a huge boost to those Slayer counts because you just got 6 people working at once to up those numbers, and it's huge. Otherwise, work for Turbine, get free Turbine points, and buy Slayer boosts. There we go. Yeah.
They're not that expensive. They're really not.
Yeah.
I was just thinking another possibility for the store, if you could have some sort of drum of Here I Am that would have 1 or 2 people have the presence of 6 people for the spawn rates.
There's actually a way to get around some of that. So one of the things that I like to do is it's not as effective as another person, but if you have hirelings or, say, the figurines, you can pop those out. That does boost the spawns a little bit in the areas that you can do that. This is dividing and conquering is a good way to do it if you have those multiple people, but the thing is, so you get like a group of 6 people, and you're gonna run, say, the Veil for explorers and rares and stuff. So divide up, and then you kill everything, reset, divide up again, but go in different directions than you did the first time, so you can get different explorer areas.
Mm-hmm.
So just a tip with that. I will say though, we've been talking about we're talking about grouping. We've been talking about the large level range that these things have. This is something to take note of because of how the power leveling system in here works. It's different than a quest system. If anyone is over the maximum level in the Explorer area, anyone who is under that will get no XP whatsoever until that person leaves. However, it will still increment all of your stuff. So if you find an Explorer area or you pass that 3,000 kill benchmark, you won't get any XP, but you can't get it later either. So pay attention to that. If
Another nice
you
thing.
are over leveled, then you'll get a penalty to it. It doesn't matter how many other people or how much higher other people are. You just get a penalty. You can also repeat rares, and there's a 66% penalty to those if you repeat them. But I don't know many people that are actively searching for the same rare over and over again for any particular reason. They just kind of run into rares as they go.
That's one thing I was going to mention with the newer explorer areas where you actually got to do and click on the sparkly spinny thing. You actually can choose when you harvest that location. So if you're doing something out in the City of Portals and you got a high level with you, don't click on that spinny thing. Wait till he's out or she's out of the group so you can get that XP.
Right.
I will say if you get really... If you're really picky about that, it does adjust on the fly. So if you have someone over level and they exit out of the wilderness, you can then click on it.
Yes.
So that's something if it is an issue for you, like, oh, I'm going to walk up to a dungeon and I know I'm going to get XP for finding that explorer. Can you just wait for a second? That kind of thing. Otherwise, the DDO wiki can be really useful in these wilderness areas if you aren't familiar with them. You will tend to... The player base will often, given a little experience, come up with sort of, if not optimal paths, at least some pretty good paths to go to maximize sort of finding explorers and rares. You'll see that in the orchard, for example, is a really popular one where you'll see various orchard paths of the way people go. But if you don't have anyone like that, or you're not familiar with the wilderness area, you'd like to maximize your experience, the DDO Wiki has got some great maps. And they mark, say, where the explorers are. So you can kind of put together a general sort of path for yourself to really maximize your time versus benefit.
Especially if you're looking
areas.
To find them. If you don't know where they are.
Exactly right.
They'll also,
as a
they'll
matter
also
of fact,
put down
you
rare
probably are going to
locations
want
too
to...
if they apply.
You're probably going to want to have a wiki map up if you're trying to explore for the first time, and you're not the type who's just like, it's okay if I,
I think
time,
most,
right?
if not all, the lists show the name of the ones you're missing, so you can reference the map. Oh, I'm looking for this, that, or the other thing, so you can specifically go to what you have left.
Right, because the rares don't actually tell you which ones you're missing. They just have a list, and then it's unknown until you go and kill it.
But the explorers are in there, yeah. So
the explorers are, but the
so
rare lists are not. And we should give a shout out to Confessions of a Geek Mom because she has found that it's really handy for her child to give her a wiki map and say, go play in the explorer area. So maybe if you have a youngster who's playing DDO, that can be a good way for them to kind of have some solo time away from mom and dad, kind of without the training wheels kind of thing.
I'm not saying an iPad is basically a device to look at DDO wiki maps with, but I'm just saying if you have an iPad, no. But yes.
Or an old screen that you can put on your
right.
computer.
Or a second monitor.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would say as a tip, XP numbers are boosted from most things, like, say, your Voice of the Master, experience potions, tomes, things in general do count. However, world bonuses typically do not, if I'm thinking
because those are quest XP, right?
Yeah, quest XP.
Which also,
right?
so that does not apply to wilderness areas or challenges.
Right.
If I'm correct.
Right, but for the most part, anything that'll get, with the exception of the event bonus type, all of your XP boosts will work in wilderness areas.
Yeah. Although some of the folks in the chat are mentioning that sometimes the wiki maps fall a little bit short, and they're talking about there's an underwater treasure in Three Barrel Cove that's the wiki map will put on a dot, but you have to figure out how to get to it, which is not easy, particularly if you don't like swimming underwater.
It's almost like geocaching. You get close, but you still have to do that last 20 feet to find it yourself.
Yep. Let's say some kind of a I'd say more advanced technique. If you really want to get some bang out of your buck for your XP pot management, something that sometimes what I'll do and kind of plan this out is, particularly so some of the epic Slayer areas are really great XP, and you'll see groups up for those all the time. Orchard and Thunderholm kind of being the top two right now, and you throw in a Slayer pot, and you can jump. I jumped from somewhere around 400 to 1,500 Slayers in Orchard Macabre in like 15 minutes.
Yeah,
There were
right.
6 people going in all different directions, and it was like
Well,
literally
that's
like
got the
I actually went
highest spawn
AFK
rate of
too.
any place.
Yeah,
I mean, hands down.
I had to go like rotate my laundry or something, and I went and did that and came back, and they'd gone from 400 to like 1,300 in that short amount of time. It was pretty ridiculous, but
It's
some of
true.
them
Going
went fast.
AFK outside of a wilderness area makes angels cry.
I was in the in the area, so I got all the XP. But so some of these XP benchmarks that you get up to, let's see, it's 10. I think it's 10, 25, 50, 100, 200, 400, 750, 1,500, 3,000, and then sometimes it goes higher than that. But one thing that you can do is, if you know you're going to do some Slayer XP, and you got an XP pot burning, get up to like 1,500 kills. That's pretty easy. Doesn't take a lot of time. You get a lot of XP. Move on to the next one. Do that again until your XP pot runs out. If you don't have an XP pot running, then you can go back to those areas, and drink a Slayer pot and build yourself up to just shy of that next big benchmark. Get out, or like plan ahead. I'd say like 50 kills out. Get out, because they can go pretty quick. And if you've got a teleportation or any kind of detour or something that gets you out faster, do that instead of recalling if you can. And then what you can have is 3 or 4 wilderness areas that are, 5 to 10 kills short of those huge, big XP boosts. Then go run a nice long quest like What Goes Up. Get to the end of that, drink your XP pot. Boom, you got the XP from that quest. Go in, get 30 kills in a couple different explorer areas. Boom, boom, boom. And you get a lot of nice XP out of 5 minutes of a pot timer. Instead of having an XP pot running from 1,500 to 5,000 kills, which, I mean, they take long. You get a large chunk of XP. It's still definitely worth it, but it takes longer to get anywhere with the XP, so you can use that as kind of dead time.
Outside of the Epic Orchard, the last 2 kill margins for myself, I'm often discouraged when you go 1,500 to 3,000. I'm like, that's a lot of kills. I'll harvest those low ones, but I wish they had some in-between steps there. He goes, those last 2, I'm like, unless it's at Epic Orchard, the spawn rate's quick enough, but unless I'm helping out another guildie or something, I typically say, that's too long to get that last bonus. I'll go run another quest.
Yeah, I would say I typically am 1,500 is usually what I'm shooting for if I'm doing much.
Yeah.
Some of them are even lower. Also, just kind of.
It's true. I usually don't go all the way up to. I know some people do go all the way up to, like, say 7,500 kills or whatever, but I tend to get around 1,500, maybe say 3,000 on some of the biggies like Giant Hold or Manectaron. But for the most part, I'll stop at about 1,500 as well.
I wonder what the philosophy behind those kill counts are. When you look at like Loto, for example, you get a little bit for every kill, so it's more of a metered progress versus these big step functions. Because that was way
early
back
design,
in the day.
early
Yeah,
design
it's always
choice.
been like that, I think.
I would say if you really want to maximize your XP, I personally tend to avoid Slayer areas that have multiple kills or multiple Slayers. Like the Giant Hold has 3 different Slayers.
Factions, yeah.
Different factions, yeah. That's kind of a personal preference. If I do those, I tend to, of course, have a smaller threshold of how many I'm going to kill. Generally speaking, it's almost like if I do like a pass. It's kind of my thing. That's kind of more or less what I'm really going to go for. Maybe a little bit more than that. But you can get some decent XP, that's for sure. Let's just close this out. what are some of your favorite explorer areas, and why? They can be for various different reasons.
So,
Oh, and I was gonna say, people in the chat, if you want to say what some of your favorites are too, we might read some of those out loud. Go ahead.
I was going to say the Orchard's probably my favorite, most common run, because in Heroic Life's that 13 to 17 level range, there's a little lull in the questing for me. That XP coming from the Orchard fills a nice gap there. And second of all, I'd probably have to go with Stormhorns. Just it's beautiful out there running around. The scenery of it, I like just running around in that area.
Look, you have to hike up the mountain. It's a long walk.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff to kill on the way, but it's a long walk. And there's there's no explorers along that hike up the mountain. It's like this 5-minute run up these switchbacks, and there's nothing there until you get to the caves. Jerry, do you have some favorite ones?
I do. On the low level, Korthos Island, good old reliable Korthos Island is a great way to get some XP.
How many times have you died in Korthos Island?
Well,
Yes,
there was
think about
one
this.
time I got hit with the falling bug, and I was sitting there right at the NPC that gets to the quest. That's just kind of right off by the pool of water. But otherwise, I haven't really died much at all on Korthos Island.
Okay. Just had to check.
Why? Why do you ask?
Check. I don't know.
I'm not that bad. No, okay, I am. But no, I haven't. Can't really think I've died too much at all in Korthos Island, which is also another reason to run it. So I do like Korthos Island actually. It's some good easy XP at low level, and again, especially since the level range the XP needed for each level is fairly low, it's a good one to get those threshold bumps from. I like probably my favorites are Giant Hold and Manectaron. The Sands of Manectaron is lots of XP. It's big, so there's a lot to see and do there. There's a lot of chests you can get. Now
That's
good
probably
loot
the
there,
best
so
for
it's
the
a
name
people.
drops.
Yeah.
That's probably the best
Yeah.
for the name drops.
Yep, best for name drops. Giant Hold is great, again, just for Uber XP. Pretty easy to get around, lots of chests, lots of explorers. Orchard of the Macabre is really good as well. Particularly, I like it on Heroic. There's some really good XP to be had there. Otherwise, just a personal favorite. I know that they're not real popular nowadays, but I really like the stuff in Reaver's Reach, those little kind of mini wilderness areas, Sawami Gardens, Mount Racelon, and Alcercaix's Valley. Like I say, I know people don't really run that as much as they used to, much at all anymore.
I do. It's great XP out there.
That's
I
those
think
are
so,
great
too.
XP bump.
Right.
Those
Yeah.
are perfect for the XP bump.
They are
and the
tough
level
quests,
range
though.
again.
They're not.
Yep.
They're not beginner quests.
On Epic, I probably run the high road more than anything, just because it's short. It's a fairly small wilderness area, so you can do a circuit fairly quickly. And then again, Stormhorns, I agree, is probably one of our more beautiful wilderness areas we've ever done.
It is a beautiful
There was
one.
one more tip that I wanted to give that I don't think we mentioned in the wilderness areas, which is that on wilderness areas that have heroic versions and epic versions, you can enter on the heroic version and still enter an epic quest.
Right.
So, for example, if you want to run an epic quest but you don't want to have to deal with epic level mobs getting there, you can just pop it on the heroic version, run there, and still enter the epic version of the quest. Make things easier on you.
Yeah. I think some of my favorites, I'll kind of go top down. Thunderholm is a great one for XP. It's nice because it's a raid area, so you can get 12 people in there and you can really go to town, assuming you're not getting too much in the lag department, which can
And
be a
you can
problem
collect
there.
crafting ingredients
Yeah,
too,
you
which
can.
is nice.
It's also there's some areas in there do have a little bit of impressiveness. I don't want to say beauty, but they're pretty impressive looking. Very dwarven kind of architecture, looks kind of nice, almost reminiscent of the Lord of the Rings.
I was just thinking the
Right.
21st Hall. I mean, it's
Yeah.
got that scale a little bit.
Yeah, it is have a nice feel to it. I also like Three Barrel Cove is a good one, and I like Three Barrel Cove too. One, it has kind of an interesting rares in the airships. It's kind of fun to fight. I don't know. It can be a little tricky. They're a little bit bland in the sense that for me, it feels like you kind of either board them or shoot them with the catapults, which It's fine. They don't. They're a little resistant to arrows.
I
More
do
so
get
than I
a
was
kick out
expecting
of
to.
the zip lines coming down from the airships, though. That's a nice touch.
Yeah, that is kind of a. Well, it depends. If you're by yourself and you're trying to shoot them with the ballista, it can be a little bit of a trick. They're tough to bring down. They're not easy to bring down. But the nice thing about Three Barrel Cove too is it has loot there, so you can get some really nice loot out of that. Just running the Explorer area is a good one. I mentioned Shindoran and Demon Web are two of my kind of. They're more of my solo favorites. Like if I'm just trying to go over the hump and I'm soloing, I'll go run those ones. Don't really tend to do them in groups. Kind of on the lower level, Sorrow Dusk is a great one. It's really popular, or at least it used to be. And that's like 4 to 11, I think, in that range, which is pretty good lower range there.
The Cult of the Six is still some pretty good XP at
Yeah, it's a
levels,
great
so
class.
you kill what you can, getting the chain done, then you look to see where your
Yeah,
down
that's a good
is.
point. I forgot about that one. I actually spent, in terms of hours spent, I have probably spent more time in that wilderness area than maybe any other, except for
Just from running, doing all the running in Cult of the Six.
well, that plus
And having
just killing
Yeah.
things in there because there's a lot to be had.
Well, it was. I think when they made the change to the current, because the Explorers didn't used to be like this. It used to be each encounter would give a certain amount of XP, and then they changed that into the current system today. If you go into Runes of Threnel, that's still the same old system. But I think Stardusk Isle and Tangaroo were like the first two that they changed to that function.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Way back in the day. But some things that folks were mentioning, Titan mentioned Wayloon. The Teutonic Drone mentioned Red Fens. Fierce Fred gave Sands a shout out. Thunderholm got a mention. So did Three Barrel Cove.
What about Atrix? It's Haven. That often gets overlooked.
Ataraxia is Haven.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's a nice little one. If I'm in that level range, it's a good one. The Veil of Twilight, Titan's mentioning as well, is another good, solid one. And that's kind of got that nice bridging of you can do it in Heroic or Epic and kind of have a nice bridging there. It's also, I believe, the location of the longest jump available in the game. You can get really high, and you can go really far, all the way across the map.
That's right, because in terms of length, that's true, because Stormhorns is not as wide, so...
Right.
Yeah.
You could probably spend more time falling in Stormhorns, but...
I know on the bonus loot weekends, we'd run the Artificer Explorer areas from time to find, just from breaking the boxes and stuff in there, you actually get some pretty decent drops just randomly out of the breakables.
Anything else you guys want to say about Explorers before we move on to game news?
Oh, I think that pretty well covers it.
Awesome. So we'll get into the game news, and there is some exciting stuff this week, and several really kind of buried some of this too. So we'll give them a little bit of ribbing on the show here for that one, but we tried to pull a bunch of it out for you. The first thing up, National Customer Service Week. There was some fun posts by the QA team, kind of a little bit of Q&A from the QA team, but also there was apparently a nice story and pictures supporting said story of someone falling asleep under a desk and being barricaded in.
Yes, we explained why it's not a good idea to fall asleep if you're a customer service agent.
Not fall asleep at work, which is a little scary for me because I actually take naps at work on my breaks all the time. It's kind of a...
Don't let your coworkers see it, huh?
Oh, they know about it. Hey, they gave me a pillow and a yoga mat one year for my birthday. So
it was kind of nice seeing the desks and some of the swag that some of the guys have on their desks.
Yeah, it was kind of a fun little post. We'll link to that in the show notes if you want to check it out. There was some clarification on Golem Hearts. Here is the breakdown of how it's supposed to work and how it will in the next patch. There is a 30-second cooldown on the effect of Golem Heart. It's always been there. It wasn't stated in the tooltip, but it will be in the next patch. The 100% chance to proc when that cooldown isn't running is not working as intended. That was left behind when testing a bug fix earlier. It's set back to 2% in the next patch. Multiple Golem's Hearts will provide additional 2% chances to proc, meaning you're more likely to get it to proc faster after the 30-second cooldown ends. Doesn't matter how many you have, you can only get it to proc once every 30 seconds.
So if I understand that correctly, though, so if it procs, you don't start rolling your 2% until the 30 seconds pass?
Correct.
Okay,
But
so you start over.
For every
Okay.
heart you have, you get an independent 2% chance.
Yep.
So if you have 3 hearts on, when you get hit, you get 3 D100 rolls to get that 1% or 2% chance for it to proc. I think that's correct. That's what I'm going with until somebody corrects me.
Oh, that is correct. Yes.
There is some information on the Night Revels coming up. They will be adding most of the, quote, old Maybar loot to the Night Revels. It will take new Night Revels ingredients to acquire. They're not adding tomes to the Night Revels event, but thank you for your feedback.
Yay!
So it sounds like it is Halloween theme. I kind of get it. And I personally, I didn't mind that the Maybar loot was in the Mimic Festival event. I did feel that the way the card thing was structured, that it felt really awkward, and because the way that the loot was originally made is you kind of had to upgrade it, and the card thing didn't really mesh very well for me on that. And I kind of have all the Maybar loot I needed, so wasn't really looking for more Maybar loot anyways. But I'm hoping this means for the Mimic Festival we'll get more, perhaps more of the kind of candy-like things that we're seeing in Maybar, or some other kind of fun, expendable-y stuff things.
I think that's an unanswered question both internally and externally at this point. All I can say for sure is that when we bring the Mimic Hunt back, it's going to have new loot.
Which unfortunately may mean it's not going to show up for a little bit longer.
That does probably mean that, yes.
Which is a bummer. I've actually been looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I liked the Mimic thing. I wasn't really looking for that loot. Like I said, I kind of wanted there to be more consumably. I thought one of the things that was really great with the anniversary cards was the stuff that you could get from it had a very nice spread. There was a lot of different things you could get. The Maybar stuff in the Mimic Festival really took up a lot of the available slots, so there wasn't really a lot that you could do with that stuff if you didn't really want the Maybar stuff.
Right.
So which was made a little awkward. So I'm hoping it'll be something more like the anniversary card, a lot of consumable-y stuff. Maybe smaller numbers. I think 4 raid timers was probably a little too much.
I don't think we're going to see raid timers as a turn-in reward for a while.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, but you're right. I think the other thing that'll happen when the Mimic Hunt comes back is we will try to remove some of the quote double randomness of it. That was the biggest piece of feedback. Is hey, we like the Mimic Hunt, but the rewards are kind of It's okay to kind of have one layer of randomness, but having more than one layer of randomness tends to not always work, particularly when you're trying to put tiered loot into that. But it's important to remember that the reason the Maybar items ended up in the Mimic Hunt was directly because the community essentially demanded it.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely.
The Maybar loot's bound to characters, so as we keep doing different lives and changing stuff, this cloak I want here, I can't move over, so I got to make another one. So I think that's part of the driver on it, is that stuff all bound to character.
Well, the Maybar loot being in the Mimic Festival was really what brought that about was the Maybar Festival came out and just it finally kind of hit the breaking point and had to get turned off, and we didn't get it back, so people really didn't get a chance to get that loot, so it was rolled into the Mimic Festival. I think the loot system for the Mimic Festival works great when it's got stuff like the anniversary card, where you get random stuff, but if you got a lot more cards in the anniversary thing too. At least I did, but I was running a lot of things where I had a lot of cards. But the randomness works really well when you're not trying to find the 2 cards to get the 1 spot on the grid. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if you don't. Doesn't matter what cards you have. You can make things that you like consumable stuff.
It's hard to say what the future of the exactly what the Mimicon sort of loot system is going to look like when it comes back. There has been some thought about maybe having a generic ingredient and having a barter UI. You put in the ingredients and you get to pick what card you want. There's also a thought about having randomized cards, but yet you could have some kind of card turn-in mechanism, so you could trade, 5 threes for a 5 or something. The exact form that this is going to take is unclear at this point. Obviously we're working on the Night Revels rather than the Mimicon, but I think when the Mimicon next debuts, we are going to take the feedback that we got from the last time into account. One quick final note on Maybar loot in the Mimicon. There was a time where the Mimicon was going to be the quote Maybar replacement, but as the Mimicon became further developed, it just made less and less sense to fit it as the Maybar event. So the idea came about to, well, let's just make the Mimicon its own thing, and then we'll do something different for the Maybar event next time around. And that ended up being the Night Revels, which is what we're going to see here real soon. So some of the bleed over of the Maybar loot really kind of comes to the fact that in several factors of that festival sort of shifted during its development in a way that is maybe not usually done for these kind of things.
I was just going to mention on the Mimic Hunt, the randomness throughout the entire game was a nice change for a little bit. After some quests, you're looting and your resources are almost spent, and then get the Mimic chest when you're not ready for it did add a little bit of excitement. So I think a lot of people enjoyed that extra twist.
Mm-hmm.
I would almost, I'd like to see more of the Mimic Festival. That's kind of where I stand.
I'd just leave it on.
Yeah, well, I
think we should just have 1% chance of chests being Mimic.
Yes.
If there was a little bit more of a, more like a bonus days weekend kind of thing, and then if you could have rewards that were kind of similar to that, almost like the double remnant. I don't know. Let's move on to actual news, maybe. The keys going back to the Night Revels keys, they're continuing to listen to feedback regarding key drop rates in both Lamani and their internal testings. There were people who got more than they needed, while others ended up spending more time than they wanted to. That's always been the case. I mean, with the Maybar keys, with the compasses from 3 Co. I mean, it's random. It happens. There are people like Draculetta that have terrible random loot luck. Me, personally, I get it in spurts. I'd go an hour without seeing one, and then the next 5 minutes I'd get 5 keys. It's kind of the way it works. One way they intend to mitigate this is to offer a few free keys to players when the event opens. Cool. I don't know. Do you know if that might be related to VIP, premium, free-to-play at all?
No, it's going to be a coupon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just going to be a coupon. I think the current plan is to do, a certain amount per account, probably around the range of as many as it takes to run each of the quests once, but maybe not. So don't hold me to that, but something like that. And it'll be so that way. It's kind of a fail-safe. I mean, it's just a freebie for everybody, right? But it's also kind of serves as a bit of a fail-safe for that small percentage of folks who end up getting sort of the rougher end of the random number generator. I think most people are going to get plenty of keys, and it's not going to be an issue. Certainly my experience has been that, both internally and on Lamania. But, as with anything where you have a certain percentage drop rate, there's going to be some people who just spend a lot more time in there than they feel they should. And so part of the way we're going to do this is that way you're not, especially in the initial debut of the event, no one's going to be kind of waiting around for their friend to get a key. Right.
Are you going to be able to buy keys with the drops from the quest, so you get your first one, kind of like you do for Crystal Cove, or is it just sheerly a random?
I don't think we're going to be able to put that in this time around. It's something that we've heard, but I don't think we're going to get it in time. There's also some, because they are available for sale in the DDO store, right? So
yeah, I know
that is a way that you can do if you want, and they're cheap in the store in the same way that compasses were as well.
I know for the Crystal Cove, especially if I just got on an alt, I'd buy that first compass, and then running the first quest, I'd get enough ingredients I could sell and buy compasses from there on out. I didn't have to worry about it once I got that first seed one.
My experiences were actually, particularly compared to some of the previous events, we're really being pretty generous on these things. I think my personal opinion is I don't think people are really going to be hurting for ingredients nor keys when
Which
it
is
actually
good because we want
comes
people to enjoy
Yeah.
the event. That's kind of the goal here. It's not supposed to be an exclusive power gaming event. It's supposed to be available for casual and power gaming alike. There is a suggestion too in the post. I think it was from Cordovan. Being in a group tends to increase the key drop rate due to the increased number of monsters that spawn, but also because you're killing more monsters. So, kind of the way it works.
I would note that the Delara's graveyard portion of the Night Revels is the same as it was for Maybar.
So it's the
So,
same stuff to
same-
kill.
Yep, the same method of ingredient distribution that existed with the Maybar event in Delara's graveyard is the same as in Night Revels. So that means,
That means I get to play with my warlock at that. That could be exciting.
Yeah.
I could see that working well.
Right. Yeah.
Let's see.
So remember your Maybar. Remember
Yeah.
your Maybar methods. Let me just say that. So
Awesome.
Let's see. New tome functionality. So there's a change to how tomes are going to function. And this applies to stat and skill tomes specifically. Currently, you can't eat a tome until it could apply. What's going to happen is they're going to let you eat any tome at any time, and then when you hit the level, it will then apply. So if you have a +4 tome that for some reason you didn't eat, and maybe you got another character, you put it on your alt character who's level 3, that level 3 character can now eat a +4 tome. In which case the +1 would then apply immediately because you'd be level 3, and then 2, 3, and 4 would apply at the then intervening intervals. So nice quality of life change. Additionally, this will be on our character sheet. How exciting is that?
it is kind of an initial implementation. So there is some room to even be more informative, but at least we're going to have something.
Yeah, and they showed some pictures of this, and there's a lot of text there. It's very informative, which almost makes it a little unclear. The key part is going to be it's going to tell you acquired X number of times. That number is whatever tome you've eaten, the highest number of tome you've eaten, and that number will always be consistent. So, say you ate that level 4 tome or that +4 tome at level 3, it's going to say acquired 4 times, and then in the tooltip section it says +1 will apply here, +2, +3. It tells you what levels they will apply at. So there was a little bit of kind of back and forth on that with the devs, and everyone was kind of trying to get on the same page of where the devs were and how they were supposed to read and all that kind of fun stuff. I think once you kind of get used to that, that was kind of the big question: was does acquired 3 times mean that that's how many times it's applying? So when you get to level 11, then it will say acquired 3 times, and then when you get to level 15, it would then say acquired 4 times. No, it's going to be acquired 4 times and then apply at the appropriate levels.
Yeah.
Sounds like an extra skill point or two and saving some inventory. Yay.
Yep. The downside, there is unfortunately a downside in that all the tomes in the DDO store will be increased by 50 turbine points. They will be 50 turbine points more expensive when that change hits. People that didn't really like that, I kind of figured it was 50 points. I'm also one of those buttheads that isn't really looking to buy tomes in the store, so it kind of was. I feel like fairly indifferent about it. I don't know. Propane, do you have any thoughts you want to share on the price increase?
50. Yeah, it barely blipped my radar. I was just excited to eat them sooner, not have to store them or have them sit around.
Go farm 200 favor. Done. It is. I think. If Jerry, correct me wrong. I'm trying to see if I had that in here. I believe only new tomes will have this functionality.
Correct.
If
It
you
is not
already have the
retroactive.
tome, it's not retroactive.
Yeah,
Which
correct.
is important to note.
Including store-bought tomes that you're sitting on.
Right. So which is a shame because I think I'm actually sitting on a Supreme Plus 4 tome from when they were on sale.
Unfortunately, there wasn't a way to really make that work. So
That's the way, honestly, I'd rather you spend, this is a great quality of life change. If it's going to take 3 quests worth of work to make it retroactive, whatever. They'll eventually phase out of the game anyways. Yep. Except all those bound to account skill tomes that I have, because I don't have anyone that needs them. The 1 to 2 upgrade tomes from Daily Dice. In any case, let's see. I think that was all in there. All right, now the fun stuff. Because that wasn't fun. What was fun stuff? More fun stuff. The Arcane Archer. We got our first look at what the Arcane Archer changes are going to be. So just kind of as here's the opening paragraph. Paraphrase a little bit. Here's some changes they'd like to make to Arcane Archer sooner rather than later. They expect they may come back to Arcane Archer in the not distant future to address additional issues. This is kind of more of a first pass. They consider it a strong basis for improvement in some of the primary features. There's some specific abilities that they consider underperforming that they want to address, but may not have time to get into very soon. This was, I think, from Vergwil.
Yes.
And I think the two that he kind of specifically called out were Dispelling Shot and Shattermantle Shot, ones that he would like to see have some differences. Action boosts were reduced to 1 action point per rank, which I think is kind of the new standard. In general, the big changes are basically to the DC arrow the DC based arrow stances and the damage ones. So the DC arrow ones, this is Terror, Paralyzing, Banishing, and Smiting. Each of these becomes 1 rank, 2 action points. Currently, I believe that they are 3 ranks for 2 action points each. Maybe it's 1 action point. There's going to be 1 rank, 2 action points. Each will have a saving throw of 20 plus Wisdom modifier plus enchantment spell bonuses. I can already tell that there's going to be some people that are going to take this and make some very interesting character builds to boost their enchantments DCs. Each of these enhancements taken grants +1 DC with enchantment spells. Changes to the actual ones specifically. Paralyze and Terror become short durations, but no additional save after the initial save. Short duration being about 6 seconds, which I believe is shorter, but there's no additional savings that can happen, which was the case before. If you keep shooting them, then you can kind of keep them going, assuming they fail to save. Teutonic Drone saying that DC Arcane Archer builds are going to be fun to play with. I think you're right. There could be some fun things going on there. And a lot of different, not just in multi-classing, but in also some Epic Destiny stuff that you can do.
I wonder if that's a lag reduction by getting rid of those extra saving rolls along the way.
It was not mentioned in a post that we'll talk about later. Moving right along.
No, I don't. I think the answer is no. But I think the thing is right now, particularly if you've run with someone who has a really good DC and runs paralyzing, I mean, it kind of is the point that they just sort of never unparalyze, and so I think they're just sort of taking that into account, and rather than making the additional saves, just say hey, it's 6 seconds. But if you keep hitting it, it'll still be continuing to be paralyzed. So it's kind of a non-issue. I think in practical gameplay terms, it really won't make much of a difference.
I think
in terms
it will,
of the way the paralyzed arrow works.
There's some give and take with this, which we'll get into in a minute. But let me get through some of these real quick, and then we'll kind of talk about, debrief some of them. Paralyzing arrows on a save has a chance to apply 3 seconds of a -10 movement and attack speed to the monster. Not you, the monster. That'd be kind of funny. Smiting arrows gains a chance to apply Deconstructed, which slows attack speed, reduces fortification by 25%, and inflicts a 25% penalty to repair healing. Banishing arrow gains a chance to inflict Pull of Reality on each hit, which is -1 PRR and MRR, and stacks up to 25 times. 5 stacks fading away every 3 seconds, assuming no new ones are added. Okay, we can talk about that stuff. It will say, so here's his kind of what he had to say on the DC-based abilities. Have long been the bane of arcane archers. They were often extremely strong when obtained, but had no way to scale towards higher levels, which has gotten worse over time. Which is kind of, so they're kind of trying to mitigate it so that it's not overpowered at low levels, but you can still keep it going into epic levels, right? Because you can. I don't think it applied your wisdom modifier before, and I know it didn't apply. I'm pretty darn sure it didn't apply enchantment DC saves as well. So there are some bonuses there. Anything else you guys want to say about the spell DC ones before we move on to the other changes?
I was gonna say the pull on reality. Is that the first time we've seen that? I don't recall
Yes.
ever seeing that
Yes,
before.
and Vargul did
Yeah.
threaten to apply that to monsters so that they could do that to us.
I did.
when
Okay, I
we're-
did remember that. Yeah.
The only other thing I'd say, well, I mean, a lot of the feedback has been about the decision to use wisdom as the modifier for the DC. Arcane Archer is available both in Ranger and Elf, and there's a lot of people who would like it to see it something other than wisdom.
I hadn't considered the elf part.
Historically, Ranger, although Wisdom is their primary casting stat, including their stat for DCs, our typical Ranger builds as they exist today, typically don't worry too much about their Wisdom,
Or
their
at all.
Ranger spell DCs.
You know what my answer to that is, though?
Yeah. Yep.
Build choices.
Well, but so here's the other thing: is there's long been this kind of push and pull between pure Ranger and Moncture, which I guess we don't really need to get too into the weeds on here. But so the decision to use Wisdom as a primary modifier, although it makes sense for the Ranger class, has also led to sort of rejuvenation of the discussion about where Rangers should sit compared to Monctures. Because monks have many reasons to have a high wisdom, so et cetera, et cetera. I will say this: there has been consideration given to perhaps either find a way to make the elf version of Arcane Archer perhaps not use wisdom or use some kind of multi-selector. There has been some discussion about a multi-selector, but that's not something we're going to rush into. I think we well know that Arcane Archer has the potential to be a balance concern if we're not careful. So just sort of saying, you get all the stats, is not something we're going to rush into. But that's not to say it will never happen either. So we are listening to your feedback on it.
My first thought is the Ranger might become the new Paladin of having so many different stats you need, because you want strength for your damage, you want dex for your
Not
saves.
anymore. If you're a bow user, you can use dex to damage from the Deepwood
if you go in
stalker
there.
tree.
You want
It's
con, you want wisdom.
It's low-hanging fruit. So
True.
I would say that for me, I feel like the wisdom. I don't like it being dex because I feel like you'd need more stat choices for Ranger if you're going to be an archer. I get the Moncture thing, but you're also giving up other things by splashing in Ranger or getting in the elf. And I don't really have a problem with the elves needing. Maybe the elves need it to be intelligence. I don't want to see it be dexterity. That's kind of where I would land personally. I think it's too makes it too easy to do your stats.
Yeah, it's too much
That's
synergy. You want to have some choices, but you don't want 5
dexterity
choices.
is not a casting stat. That's where I land.
Yeah, right.
Um,
If you really want to get granular with it, the Ranger is a divine spell school.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you look at the divine spellcasters, Druid, Cleric, Favored Soul, and Ranger, they're all use wisdom to determine their DCs.
Mm-hmm.
So having the Arcane Archer be that makes some sense. Although there is also some discussion about, Arcane, we're not talking Divine Archer here, right? So,
yeah. It will say that currently Paralyzing Arrow DC on Live caps out at 26. Now it'll start you at 21 with a 10 wisdom. Put in some effort in wisdom, like I don't know, a +6 item so you can cast your Ranger spells. you're almost at 26 anyways, so there's a lot of benefit there. Certainly there's some concerns about a Moncture getting all of this and having high wisdom anyways. Sure, I get that. The other thing is, if you've got Paralyzing Arrows on, that means you have something else turned off. So there's a trade-off there. In any case, some of the other stuff that's coming, elemental arrows, increasing the base damage to 1d8, damage scaling with spell power, amount to be determined. Each additional elemental arrows increases damage die by +1. Is that per tier or each one up the tree? Because it's just one per. They're just one.
I believe that
one
would be
each box,
up
right?
the tree, right?
Yeah, okay.
It'll be up the tree.
So you have to pick what order you least likely to use because you want to have the biggest die for your favorite element. So I was actually thinking it'd be the other way around, but I have no idea.
Well, so the next line says that each enhancement tier from 2 to 5 has a new multiple choice option. Elemental damage increases damage by +2 dice for a maximum of 7 dice if you select only one option. And then tier 5 also scales with spell power. And force arrows will also scale number of dice with elemental. Scales number of dice with elemental arrows and also scales with spell power. I think I might have to actually take I stopped taking elemental arrows because I always took the force ones. I might have to take them both now.
Maybe you get a die at each tier. You pick one of the 4 elements again, and it stacks that way. So you could pick.
Well, you can take. So what he's saying is you can take each of the 4 elements, and you'll get +3. You'll have 4d8 elemental dice. Or if you pick the +2, you can get extra dice instead of an extra element to use.
Okay, I'm not Vargwheel, but here's the way I read it. For each enhancement, you're going to have a multiple choice. Which element are you going to pick? That element is going to give you +2 dice. You know, this enhancement exists in tier 2, 3, 4, 5. So you'll have the choice between, say, taking 4 different elements for a +2 dice of each. You can stack it up, etc., etc. Additionally, generically, each additional elemental arrows will increase damage by +1 die, regardless of element type, I believe is the missing information there.
Right.
So that +1 will impact regardless of which element you're choosing, but the specific element you choose will have its damage increased by +2 dice.
Right. So it's either you can pick a new element +1 die, or you can pick no new element and +2 die. That's where you get the 7 from.
Right. And I lied. There's actually 3 versions of the enhancement, not 4.
No, there's 4. It would be.
No, but I mean in terms of the tiers. So
there's 4 tiers. The first one you have to pick an element, so you can.
Yeah.
But so that's how those are going to work. Looks good.
I
I
when
personally
I read
stopped taking
this,
elemental, so.
I'm like, this is really cool. And when's that going to come to my Eldritch Knight?
Later. Here's the one I really keyed in on: Shadow Arrows, not errors. Woo-hoo. This used to be +5% double strike. Now it's going to be equipped bows gain +1 competence bonus to critical damage multiplier. And if I'm not mistaken, the Deepwood Stalker one is competence bonus to critical threat range. Yeehaw. So I liked that one. And then Mystical Archer, which is the capstone, the dexterity bonus will increase to +4. And Slayer Arrow, they're not going to change it yet, but they're kind of looking at that might be a place if they need to tone down the damage. That's where they're going to do that. I'm going to skim through. If you guys have any thoughts, go ahead. I'm going to kind of skim through the other stuff that was said relevant to Arcane Archer in here to kind of see if there's more stuff I want to pull in.
Just when my first thought, you see Mystical Archer, and it goes to Dex. Boy, I would have thought Wisdom just by reading the title.
Yeah. It's Dex currently. Currently it's +2 to Dex and like 20% double shot. I will say my Archer was invested in Arcane Archer and in Tier 5 and the Capstone is now invested in Tier 5 and Capstone on Deepwood Stalker and feels a lot more powerful, actually. I'm actually enjoying Headshot a lot more than I was enjoying the Slayer Arrow, personally. But
yeah, the cooldown's a lot less.
Cooldown's less. Making something considered a critical threat means unless I roll a 1, it's a threat. It's a critical hit. So Not
Now, it should be noted these shadow arrows does require 18 levels of ranger.
true.
So that's really going to be for not so much your ranger splashes.
Level
out
20
there.
Ranger. Yeehaw. No, actually, briefly I did Tier 5 in Deepwood and Capstone in Arcane Archer and had like 70% double strike or double shot. And then I toned it down because of the way the mini shot works. It penalizes you in double shot heavily. Speaking of which, like my segue here, changes
Here we're nerfing something.
changing to mini.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on how you're looking at it.
Yeah.
Changes to many shot and 10k star. They're still discussing it. This is not final. This is where they are right now. Take a deep breath.
I think there's a forum
Here we
thread
go.
on this.
Well, so this is where I said I was going to give several a little bit of a hard time because he buried this in the Arcane Archer thread. So if you didn't care about Arcane Archer, maybe you're a muncher, you might have missed this one. And there's some other stuff he buried in here too. Instead of starting extra threads and saying, "Hey, go look at this thread," to kind of, anyways, many shot. And
Let me
10K
just say
stars.
that thread will exist. The reason we got the many shot 10k stars thing out in the way it did is because it was critical to the discussion of getting feedback on
Absolutely.
Arcane Archer.
Absolutely.
But there will be a post that calls it out more specifically that we'll get pretty soon.
Yes. They're considering changes to many shot and 10k stars. They want a design that throws out fewer projectiles for server and client performance, as missiles are actually expensive. They also want a design that doesn't require a double shot debuff. I'm in favor of that. I know Chai's in favor of that. We kind of harped on that a little bit. Here's the redesign for many shot. Again, not final. This is just where it's at right now. And it probably be subject to change later. Anyways, for the next 20 seconds, you add your base attack bonus ×4 to your double shot and range power. Using this ability places 10,000 stars on a 30-second cooldown. You no longer have a double shot penalty applied. 10,000 stars redesigned. For the next 30 seconds, you add your wisdom to your double shot and range power. Using this ability places many shot on a 30-second cooldown. I'm assuming their actual cooldowns don't change. That's kind of what I got there.
Correct.
And I don't actually know what the 10k star cooldown is.
I'd have to look
It's
it up.
less than 2 minutes, I think. Anyways, the goal with these abilities is to make them more efficient without reducing the overall DPS of ranged characters using one or both of these abilities. That was kind of the goal. As an aside, sneak attack and many feat based on hit damage effects scale with range power. So a lot of the stuff a lot of our new abilities that we're throwing out, all of those elemental arrow stuff, a lot of this stuff scales with spell power. He called out sneak attack in particular scales with 150% range power, which I'm liking because my ranger does sneak attack damage because he's in deep woods. Yeah, there were some concerns about this though, that double shot currently basically hard caps at 100%. You don't get any more benefit out of it if it goes over 100. They're considering a change to let double shot wrap. So if it exceeds 100%, it would start to have a chance to use a third attack, which is something that they're kind of going for.
I'm pretty sure by the time since that is written, that has actually been coded and is in.
I think that's a great change because it kind of meets players a little bit more in the middle with that. And if you're gonna make these changes so that you're not penalizing double shot, that change actually was penalizing double shot in that manner. Not as heavily, but it was a concern. This will not change for double strike. They're not going to make the same change to double strike. It wasn't really clear to me if they wouldn't be able to because of a technical reason or because of balance reasons. I wasn't sure on that, but
I don't know either.
in any case, it does move some of the power of bows outside of many shot into other areas, particularly since you're not going to have the double shot penalty, which was the double shot penalty was really to offset the DPS boost of many shot. As an aside, having 10k stars work only with Shuriken would not take away the build. It would just require weapon swapping, which they didn't want to force. And I think that was kind of all of the notes there.
It's been, this has been a long simmering topic of discussion. Many shot and 10K stars. It's been perhaps one of the more controversial sort of debates we've seen on the forums in particular for, gosh, what, almost 2 years now? There are some folk out there who would just be a little bit more adamant that many shot and 10K should have a shared cooldown. You hit one, you don't get the other. With the idea being that you shouldn't be able to utilize both for this particular build. But that's not something that we would like to see. What Sev said there, essentially, the other thought is, well, 10K stars should only work with Shuriken, and that would take care of that. But it really wouldn't, because that would just mean people would have to carry two sets of weapons and swap all the time. We don't want to invalidate all of our many shot plus 10K stars builds. So, but we do need to find a way to redesign it to, I don't know, for several balance reasons that people have discussed for years. I guess it's probably not worth going on a long tangent here, but something needed to be done with many shot and 10K stars in a way that would also provide extra diversity and hopefully keep many shot and 10K stars as a powerful combination while also giving people other options as well. And hopefully we've done that with the changes we're making here.
Propane, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree that try to keep both the 10K and many shots about the same. I wouldn't want to mess up those builds. My first thought was to come at it is try to boost the ranger side a little bit more to give you a similar power boost on being pure ranger as you would have in the 10K stars.
Yeah, I think I get the sense that comparatively that they're not really changing relative power between the two, and really Sev actually had a post in there about doing DPS calculations, according to his DPS calculations, which showed that the new version is actually more DPS, but a lot of where that DPS is coming from is it's actually by pulling out the penalty, it spreads the DPS out over a fuller time frame.
It's less spike damage and more consistent damage.
That's something I'm a little concerned about. I'm coming from a viewpoint. I have an alt that's 8 bard, 12 ranger, and he's mostly melee. But when there's a big boss fight or something come up, I pull up the bow, I hit many shot. Best 20 seconds of the quest. I see big numbers. I do a lot of DPS, and I save that. It's almost like an epic moment. And these changes, I'm concerned that I'm going to lose that feeling of having that fun for that 20 seconds because I'm like, if it isn't as big of a spike, I might as well keep swinging my weapons.
It's a good point. I hadn't considered. My fighter has 6 levels, a ranger, and does the same thing as well. I hadn't really considered that, but it's definitely something I didn't see Severlin kind of taking or mentioning is this changes. Many shot currently is a very high spike damage. This is going to take that DPS and spread it out over more time, which in a longer drawn out fight is sure more DPS. If the fight is a boss fight, a raid boss fight that's going to last,
and if you're primary
30
ranged,
minutes, at 30 minutes, then yes. You want more DPS. It's not as big of a deal that the spikiness is less, but you've got a short mini boss, or you've got that character that just pulls out a bow for the 20 seconds of mini shot every 2 minutes. It's a nerf to those characters for sure. I think it's definitely. I don't know. Well, I kind of want to see how it plays first.
And I think when we get out of the range of theory crafting,
tone down a little bit. So
I think when we get out of the realm of theory crafting and into practical in-game experience, I have a feeling that people are going to find ways to work around any perceived nerfs with many shot. But it should be noted as well that we do care that what you were saying, Propane, about, hey, it's fun to see those big numbers.
Yeah.
And we don't want to kill people's fun. So That doesn't mean, but there are balance reasons
Hmm.
sometimes where we have to make these changes. But hopefully, we found a happy medium there where you're still going to have that experience of hitting many shot and seeing, you know, seeing the coolness. And if that's not the case, let us know that because you know, we none of this is permanently settled. In fact, rarely are balance discussions permanently settled. It's always
As
an
given by the
ongoing
fact that we're
process.
talking about
Right.
manyshot
Yeah.
almost 10 years after it was implemented in the game.
Yeah, right.
And it's not the first time it's been changed either, because the double shot penalty was a new thing. I will say, though, that just in the time that, I think they posted this on Wednesday or Thursday, and you just mentioned already that the double shot wrap has already been implemented. That was something that was through this discussion that was on the forum. So that came about pretty quick, which is good. So definitely, they're taking input from players already and have already made adjustments, kind of announcing to the general public. The other thing I would say that I didn't really see in Sev's calculations are currently the way manyshot works. Once you get it high enough, you're doing it's 4 shots at a time, which means if you throw that Slayer arrow, you're getting 4 Slayer arrows, right? And other such abilities. So there's going to be a little bit of drop there, and his damage calculations didn't really reflect that. It's really hard to reflect that, and I get that. But
I'm just thinking back to the old days when you'd pull up mini shot with Slayer arrow, and you had no idea what numbers were coming because you could have that Slayer arrow proc 3, 4, 5 times or not proc at all.
I will say this, though. I kind of want to see it on live, but my Ranger right now feels a lot more powerful just from the Deepwood passing. And I think this will make him stronger, even though there's going to be some things to it that are going to have to be adjustments. He might.
It's going to take some time to readjust
Yeah,
the skill points and
he's
get a
going to
different
lose some
feel for the setup.
spikiness. He's
Yeah.
going to lose some spikiness with manyshot. He doesn't have 10k stars, so whatever. But I think in the long run he'll still be a stronger character as they're putting more power into the different trees as well.
So two quick thoughts I had. I have a thrower build, and I purposely did not take 10,000 stars because of the cooldown afterwards. I figured it was too big of a price to pay because of the cooldown. Now I got to go back and see if I can work that feat back in or not. So that's a good game choice. I am interested in trying to see how that works out. In regards to the reducing the number of projectiles fired, I didn't see it in the forum thread, but does anybody know if it's actually 4 damage rolls, 4 physics checks, 4 attack rolls, or some of that stuff
I think it's
doubled
the
up?
projectiles itself. The actual thing flying created the fly.
So it's the 4 images going. If there's no,
Right.
this is wondering if they're doing separate physics checks or not.
Probably, presumably.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, they did that with 2-weapon fighting, where the first one hit the
Right.
physics check, you assume the second did. So from the lag point of view, I'm like, well, you have one bigger image of 4 arrows going versus 4 individual arrows. I never I couldn't see if there was a clear answer of what was the calculations behind the scenes on those questions.
That would be a question that Vargul would be able to answer better than I could. But in
Mhm.
general, I think you're correct. The other thing in the forum thread, people have said, "Well, I hit many shot and I don't see lag." That it's kind of sort of reductive. It's not quite as one-to-one as that. This is part of an overall effort to reduce sort of
Which we're gonna get to
server-client
in a
communication.
second.
And so but I was just going to say that, yes, it's not the shorthand where I'm seeing in the forums is many shot causes lag. That's where they're nerfing it. Well, no, it's not. That's not actually it at all.
That's why they're changing it to double shot.
Yeah, right. So, but as part of an overall series of things we can do to improve game performance, this is one of those things.
Yeah, and if you were around for it, 2-weapon fighting didn't cause lag so much back before it was changed to the percent chance of the offhand. It used to be physics check with both swings, and then physics, lots of physics checks. Well, everyone was 2-weapon fighting, and then we got to Tower of Despair, and in part 2, the way everyone was dealing with it was everyone would mob this main boss, and lag would ensue because you had so many different physics calculations right in that short time frame.
Well, same as Shroud Part 4. The same thing. It's just the group beatdowns.
Yeah, and you got more and more of those physics calculations, and when they made that change, it was a major difference, and it really improved things. So, I'm all happy for improving things, even if it's a little nerfy. But let's be honest. Manyshot, it's been overpowered. It's always been overpowered. The functionality with the double shot penalty was always kind of a pain point with players, including myself, and at least a couple of the people that are on DDOCast. So, before we go all pitchforks and stuff, let's see how it's theoretical and get it out of theoretical and see how it plays, and
save those pitchforks. You'll want them later.
Yeah, hint. But and here's the thing, are you still having fun playing the character? That's the thing I think you keep in mind the most. Is your character still fun? Now, I get that for some people that fun means that I can take anything out in the game, including the Storm Reaver, in 5 seconds flat. I get that. But, that's not fun for other people either. So, anyways, moving on. Another thing that Sev buried in this, I think it was Sev, buried in, it has to be, because there was stuff in here that hasn't been said otherwise. And he really buried this in the Arcane Archer thread. Mr.
Yeah,
Producer.
okay. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so there was a question of why, even though it was in the response, why are the changes to manyshot? One of the big ones is we've been talking about is lag. Projectile burst is harder on the server than the constant rate of fire, so they want to reduce the number of projectiles. You'll also see us looking at some things that we're looking at in terms of lag. He buried this. Auras coming next year to reduce lag that way as well. and just with that, all the Radiant Servants and Eldritch, what's the Warlock tree? I can't remember the Warlock tree now. It was funny because I was listening to the Cocktail Hour and they couldn't think of something, and I'm shouting at my radio because I could remember, and now I can't. Yeah, the Aura tree. So those people are now cowering in fear.
Enlightened Spirit.
Enlightened Spirit. There we go. They're also looking lots of ways to reduce lag.
Don't forget the Pale Masters.
Pale Masters. Yeah, exactly. So there's three groups that are going to cower in fear. They are also looking at lots of ways to reduce lag, from a new data center, which we already knew about, to individual character abilities, to monster spawns, to AI pathing, and perhaps, here's some new stuff, perhaps even go so far as to reduce raid maximums to 10 players. So there's a change. Although they didn't really say if that's retroactive or new raids or how that's going to work. Because if you do it retroactively, I assume that means it's going to be...
None of this is set in stone, right? Right. It's part of a large series of discussions. We have heard that people are telling us fix the lag. And that is something we have been consistently working on, as you've seen for the past year. And it's something we are continuing to work on. And I think that if we were to make that change, it would most likely be for future raids rather than retroactively apply to previous raids. But even then, like I said, none of this is set in stone. So
even if you don't do it retroactively, it's not like we can't just take 10 players into a raid. Just wouldn't necessarily be balanced for that. But there's power creep to kind of offset that. We're going to move along because we're getting behind here.
Yeah, we're getting
Even
late.
though that would be fun to talk about. But
yes, another show.
Yeah. So there's some changes coming there. I'll just say some of the stuff in there real quick in case you missed it. They're looking at auras, data center, individual character abilities, which is really vague, monster spawns, which is a noticeable problem I've seen, AI pathfinding, perhaps reducing raid maximums to 10 players. hopefully this will be, again, with that manyshot, there'll be its own thread to discuss these ideas, because Arcane Archer thread is not really a great place for that. You really buried that.
Yeah,
In any
it
case.
absolutely will be. I mean, the aura thing is, fairly well known. If you go on the forums, you'll know about the people who say that the Enlightened Spirits aura may be contributing to game performance issues. I think in general that's the aura that he's talking about immediately, to the extent that it's a systemic issue with all auras that may require some tweakage. But for the most part, I think we're going to be as selective as we can be there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of key abilities with auras that you don't want to change the functionality of them, because the functionality is really nice. But yeah, let's see. Bonus days ending tomorrow morning ish. Sorry if you're listening to this recorded. It was a late show for us to record. But it's +1 loot and 20% crafting XP. I'm gonna guess that most people are gonna be overly concerned that they might have missed that. See, store news. Determine your discount through. I'm sorry, this is through today. But you can get 10% off of 1,000 turbine points, 20% off of 2,000, 30% off of 3,000 turbine points to buy. The codes are 10, 20, 30, DYD. So, and this is all on their store page. The sales through Thursday, a little more time. 20% off of shared bank storage, character bank upgrades, storage bags, and the Platinum Vault. Freebie, a nice one. I always like these. Bells of Opening. You can get 1 Bell of Opening with the code BBELL.
I will say it stacks. If you can manage to get it in time, that determine your discount does, the stuff is still on sale. So load up with the storage and then apply the determine your discount if you can do it. It's a good way to help yourself out.
Yeah, one of these days it'd be really nice if you gave the determine your discount at the same time the autos boxes. Yeah, any case, DDO
And a point sale too.
I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Although you'd probably sell a lot of autos boxes that week.
Yeah, we probably would.
DDO 162nd Chronicle of the week. Stone of Change Community Spotlights. Stone of Change Eldritch Rituals Cookbook has been added to the Hall of Fame. DDO Players News is giving away a 1-year VIP code. Look at them. The Guild Hall. The House of Black Star is a friendly, mature, and active guild that plays a Galana and welcomes all levels and player abilities. Guild uses TeamSpeak and has a website. The comment, what polyhedral die best represents you as a person? Jerry?
I am a D12. Because I'm special.
I'm a D7 because I'm a special snowflake.
I was thinking a D6 because I'm a little more square than I really need to be.
Fan site news. The Stormage campaign is a newest fan site. Tito, hey, we got a shout out for our 400th episode. DDO Players News is talking Night Revels on their 53rd episode. Damsels of DDO fought Devil's Gambit. MD Interactive looked at the Night Revels. House of Grouse was harbor questing. Tactless and Craftless heads to Cobalt Island. Let's see, talked about that. Cordovan got a visit from the Players Council and previews Night Revels on Lamania.
They saw some stuff.
Although the Players Council, I would hope they would see some stuff.
Yep.
See, videos. Dirty William J. had the first episode of Wrath, which was something he teased a while back. It was a very interesting role-playing kind of, it's almost like a little TV show, little web show. Not really so much playing, but more of an actual plot line and things going on. It's kind of cool. Voodoo, I tagged three videos from Voodoo this week. It's not intentional, but it's the way it works sometimes. He has a teaser for his new Warlock series. He had a video on how to tank the Stormreaver in Fall of Truth, which is really good if you're interested in doing that. And he also had a Subterrane Central walkthrough. The center part of the center. Subterrane has 2 different areas. He's talking about the center one, which is the one you come in the first. Then Axel DDO had a video about avoiding burnout. Tactlicious and Craftlicious also had a blog on Ranger Destinies. DDO Gamer looked at fixing casters with first edition. He basically pulled some first edition spells as suggestions for DDO. Cocktail Hour had their 91st episode. Nicely done. Very enjoyable. DDOcast news. we have a contest going for our 400th episode. If you go to a post on the 400th episode, you can still leave a comment. There's a lot of fun stuff being given away. You have until Friday. If you do not post by Friday, any Friday, anytime this Friday, anywhere in the world this Friday, you are not. If you wait till after that, you are not guaranteed to be entered. I will draw sometime on Saturday.
Friday, October 16th, 2015.
Yes. I'm using Turbine's method of dating. The deadline is this Friday. The real deadline will be sometime on Saturday at a time of my convenience and whenever I wake up, basically. But get it in by Friday. All you got to do is comment. You can win. We're giving away one of these fancy Stormage campaign books that are really shiny and fancy. There's a Traveler's Trunk, some 500 Turbine Point codes, which you still need to give me, by the way. And then other gaming news, MMORPG had 5 MMOs for experienced players, and DDO was number 5.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. I mean, we're a 10-year-old game, for crying out loud, and we're still getting on these lists. It's pretty cool. The other games, in case you were wondering, were Secret World, WildStar, Elder Scrolls Online, and Final Fantasy XIV. There you go. It's kind of fun. Were you going to jump in on something there earlier, Jerry?
No, it's okay.
Oh, great.
It's cool.
I was
I'll
thinking
get you those points codes.
with the cocktail hour getting close to 100 episodes, are they going to do some type of special century club? I mean, that could be interesting.
I am almost scared.
Century Club, yeah.
100 could be kind of a wild ride. I don't know. It's exciting, but also a little, like it's exciting. They're almost 100. You're almost kind of wondering what they're gonna do, and it's like going to a party, but you're not really sure how much armor you should bring.
Bring your passport.
Maybe bring your favorite anti-hangover technique. Let's go with that. The survey question for the week, for no lightning. I mean, there's a lot of comments, but they're all kind of, hey, happy 400. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for being participant in that. That's great. But our survey question for the week comes from Hereticus. If you aren't playing DDO, what other games do you play? And I timed this great because I actually just bought an Xbox 360 like last weekend, kind of on a whim because it was cheap on Craigslist and because there were some games I wanted to play. So I'm currently playing through Fable. Up until that point, I played generally RPG, kind of semi-open world RPGs, but didn't really have a lot of available things in my home. I have an SNES, and that was my roommate has a GameCube, and that was about as much as we can muster. But what kind of games do you guys generally play?
I could fill an hour and a half. I am such a huge gamer. I play everything and everything. I've long been, for 20 years now, I've been a PlayStation gamer. So I always like to get the free PlayStation Plus games of the month. I always play that sort of thing. I recently just finished, actually a little bit earlier today, I finished Everyone's Gone to the Rapture, kind of a walking simulator / adventure games. I play a ton of adventure games. I have a Vita, I have a 3DS, I have an Atari, I have an NES. I play other PC games as well. I just basically cram as many games into my life as I can, and then I freak out that there's another 30 that I want to play that I don't have time for. I'm looking at you, Witcher 3. And so that's just, it's nuts. But in general, I play a lot of indie games, a lot of adventure games. I like things that are a little bit different, creative. I'm really into game design, game theory. So things that are trying to do something a little bit different. I tend to not play, say, survival horror. I tend to not play shooters. I have in the past, but I don't really play that stuff so much anymore. And I'm a big RPG guy.
RPGs are fun.
Yep.
Boy, I actually got in first. That's hard to follow. I guess I play Lotro maybe once a week, 3-4 times a month. And the other game I just saw a trailer for was Transformers Devastation. That caught my eye, just the old school look back from the original series. I'm like, ooh, that looks cool. That's the first game I've seen in a long time that the combination of the content and the looks really caught my eye.
Titan gave Doom a shout out, 1 and 2. I remember that I tried the newer, or kind of like the updated, I can't, just like just Doom or something like that. But it was like so horror. It was like you had to walk around with like you couldn't have a flashlight and a gun on at the same time. I got really tired of that. I'm not a horror. I'm not a horror guy. I like first-person shooters, but I don't like the horror genre. Things jumping out of me, movies or video games. But in any case, do you guys have stuff you want to plug or say before we close it up here?
If you are into adventure games, there's 2 that I've played just recently that I would highly recommend. One called Life is Strange. It's by Don't Nod Entertainment. It's a really cool sort of conversation-based game, a little bit in the sort of theme of the Walking Dead Telltale stuff that's come out. And then finally, Dreamfall Chapters is by some of the same people who did Secret World. Particular Ragnar Tornquist is the design and game director for that one. And it's an episodic adventure game as well that's available for the PC that I've also been getting a lot of entertainment from.
I'll just give a shout out to my guildies, Brotherhood of Redemption. I missed raid night tonight, so hopefully they had a good time without me.
Well, thanks
Wish you were out here.
Thanks for joining us. You tell me you're doing something great for the community, and tell me you got to have Cordovan's ear for a few minutes. Smooth it over.
I guess I could just say for DDO real quick, we are working to get Lamania out for a new version of Update 28 Patch 1 that'll probably include another Night Revels preview. Basically, all the stuff that we talked about on the show should, fingers crossed, be in. If we can get it out, I think the current plan is to try to use Tuesday night's build, so that would mean Wednesday, Thursday. But it all depends on how Tuesday night's build goes. So stay tuned on that, but we are targeting this next week for a prop to Lamania. Additionally, we're going to have some pretty big forum threads, I believe, this week. We're going to talk about some of our future kind of plans in regards to balance and some other things that will probably be a lot of conversation, I imagine, this week. So stay tuned. Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus if you're into that. The forums, DDO.com/forums. Also, just want a quick plug since we are on Twitch, twitch.tv/DDO stream Sunday to Sunday. We have got shows, and you can find the full schedule over on twitch.tv/.
You can also subscribe to it. See, because I know I get it on I can pop it up on my devices and look at it. And it's kind of fun to see. There's a lot too. They're all over the place. You got a lot of folks streaming, which is great. It's really cool to see. I will say, and you probably hate me for saying it, but you might want to unbury your tinfoil hat for this week. Have fun. Be nice to the devs. In any case, thanks for listening to the show, especially the folks in the chat room. We had a pretty lively chat room today. It was pretty awesome. And thanks for these guys for joining me. It was great to have them on the show, especially on a late Sunday night. Thanks to all the other DDOcast contributors. Just to give kind of a heads up on some of the stuff that looking at for topics. P.S. Please send me topic ideas. There'll probably be a survey coming out so I can get more topic ideas because I'm running low. But we've got debates coming up. Got a kind of a little mini series on different levels of content. We'll probably do something on line of raids for debates. Talking with Voodoo to get a show about building a raid viable tank, a raid caliber tank. So that's some stuff that's kind of coming up. But great folks that put together DDOcast, especially 400. How cool was that episode? Having many people involved. I got a lot of great feedback on that episode. Thanks for sharing that. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. And also thanks to Turbine for supporting DDOcast and making DDO happen. It's a great game. We can complain about it here and there, but by and large, it's a fun game. And thanks to the Wizards for letting them do that and making D&D. And thanks to Cyberburst for hosting the podcast. You can hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be part of the show, if you have a comment on this episode, have a question you'd like to ask us, if you have a topic you'd like us to debate or talk about, I always need more of those. I really do. It's a lot of fun to kind of get that from you guys. So we're talking about what you want to be hearing us talk about. So, and and all that stuff. Let us know. Leave a comment anywhere you can leave a comment. DDOcast@gmail.com also works. I check that regularly, way too regularly. It's almost as good as texting me, honestly. You can also find us on social media and follow us for latest cast updates. Our tip for the week: you can put ham in the stone of change and make ham oil for your Warforged or Blade Forge. It's called meat smithing.
Nice.
It's a good one, people.
It's kind of a cure-all, right?
Well, yeah. It's a heal over time effect, but it's people generally. You don't know about it. But anyways, until next time, all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to go into those explorer areas.